I thought you said oh no, crossbow. I'm not. I'm not about that crossbow, man. I just, I. It's all about regular bow hunting. But then you could also make the argument that a compound bow is cheating too, right? But I think it's still, uh, uh. Eric says, "Two Patriot Mama had her 17th TikTok account banned some 2 days after they banned her 16th account. I saw on Instagram just now. Wow. That's persistence. What's up, Steve Carlson, for the thanks for the follow on Facebook. That is persistence, Eric. 17 TikTok accounts.
I'm just shaking my head in disbelief, but I guess her 18th account is coming up next.
That's funny. So, hey, Eric, can you sound check me on Facebook? I started the live stream over there. And
One moment.
That'd be great. And so today we are going to talk about the U.S. economy. We're going to talk about the truth, because I hear a lot of misconceptions, especially on Podbean, not with any of the podcasts that we normally talk or we normally associate with, but I also go around Podbean and I like listening to other podcasts. There's some good ones, but I've heard a lot of misconceptions, and the problem is a lot of people don't understand how the U.S. debt works, how inflation works, or even what inflation is, and how it the stock market plays into it. But what's also just crazy to me is, and I hate hearing this, and I know, look, there may be people in this room that have this. Awesome, Eric, thank you. There may be people in this room that have this opinion or have said this or whatever, but they think that we are owned by other countries. So I'm here to clear that up, because that's not true. Awesome. So I'm going to put up a graph or a couple pictures of charts here to explain and show you the relationship between interest rates and inflation, and what the Federal Reserve is saying and what we can expect. And I think it's going to be kind of mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing to me because it's the first time I've actually sat and looked at that relationship. It's going to be, I think you guys are going to really want to see this. But let me look up here. U.S., just so I have the exact numbers, U.S. debt ownership. So if you go to the Federal Reserve's website, they have all of this data. It's all accessible. This is all public information. The problem is that it can be complicated to read, and that's why a lot of people go on there. Either they don't know what they're looking at, or they just, it scares them. Now, in 2018, so pretty recently, and things haven't changed all that much, 70% of the debt in the United States is owned by U.S. citizens. It's domestically owned. So we're not owned by any other country. Okay? Of that breakdown, so this is again in 2018. I can find an updated number, but I'm just going over this concept with you. In 2018, 29.3%, which was $6.21 trillion, was owned by foreign investors. The foreign investors include obviously countries like China and Japan and all that. China owned in 2018 only 5.6%, which was $1.18 trillion of the United States debt. Japan owned 4.9%, so just under, at $1.03 trillion. Brazil owned 1.4%. Ireland owned 1.4%. UK owned 1.3%, Switzerland at 1.1%, Luxembourg at 1%, Cayman Islands at 0.9%, and Hong Kong at 0.9%. So Japan is almost up there with China as far as debt ownership. Now, some of these numbers, again, I can go back and try and find a more updated form of that, but just to show you what all that entails, right? Let's see. How much is there information? Okay. So, actually, As of July 2021, the total top 10 owners of U.S. debt, the first country, Japan, actually owns the most U.S. debt now. As of July 2021, they own $1.3 trillion. The Department of Defense, so China owns $1.1 trillion. So they actually own less debt, or about the same amount of debt as they did in 2018. The United Kingdom passed up Ireland, but the majority of the debt is held by the American people. Now, what is the U.S. debt? The U.S. debt comes in the form of a Solid Blue Sister. I am going to show those graphs on Facebook where the video element is. So if you want to go join the Facebook Live, I don't know if you already have or not. Yes, go over there and you'll be able to see the graphs I'm going to show up. So
have her, if you can like maybe drop the link to your Facebook in the chat on Podbean. Yeah, that way she can look for it on Facebook.
Yep, this should work here. Let's see. I know some. Let me know if that works, Solid Blue Sister, so you can come over to Facebook. If not, if you go on Facebook and you look up Real Conservative Talk, it should pull up. Again, I've been shadow banned, and it's been harder for some people. So it all depends. I haven't posted anything bad lately, really. So maybe. And John Gale says, "Hey, I'm here too." All right, cool. So the U.S. debt, though, is in the form of U.S. Treasury securities. That is like U.S. Treasury bonds, U.S. Treasury bills, U.S. Treasury notes. The difference between those three is the time horizon on those. So a U.S. Treasury bond, I believe, is anywhere between 10 and 30 years. A U.S. Treasury note is anything from like 1 year to 10 years. And a U.S. Treasury bill is anything less than 1 year. I don't think it goes T-bills go over 1 year. It might, though. But that's how long the debt securities are. As far as interest rates, and this is important to explain. When you hear the term the Fed is going to raise interest rates or interest rates are increasing, it's a target rate. The Fed actually doesn't, like, it's not like, okay, they raise interest rates and then that's immediately what you're going to get regarding U.S. debt securities. No. U.S. debt securities are traded on an auction, I believe, every week. And what's up, Cool Cat? He said, okay, I had some beers, but our debt is because of pork. That's funny. But the interest rates, when the Fed talks about hiking interest rates, all they're doing is they're hiking their target interest rate. Okay? And then basically on the auctions, this is where it's getting complicated. I'm going to simplify this. Investors are going to bid, because when you buy a bond, it's almost like you're paying cash and you're buying a piece of debt. So imagine if you were going to loan someone money and they were going to take it to go buy a car. Like, you become the bank at that point. It's the same concept, right? If you were going to loan someone $10,000 to go purchase a car, for you to make money, you have to get interest in return, because they have to not only pay the principal of $10,000 back to you, but also, let's say, a 5% interest rate. And that interest rate, they may pay it back in the form of a monthly payment. They may pay it back. You could have it to where, like for T-bills, which is a shorter term securities, it's paid back at the end of the term. So let's say you had a treasury bill for 1 year with a 1% rate. If you paid $10,000 worth and you got 1% on top of that, you would get what would be $10,000 and $100. No, sorry, yeah, $10,100 back in return, right? Your profit is $100. So it's no different, again, than you acting as the bank with the U.S. government, and you're giving them cash, and they're giving you a promise that they're going to repay your cash with interest. Now, why is that important? The relationship, which is the value of the debt, so that's the $10,000 principal amount of, excuse me, like I said, I have COVID, guys. So if I cough or whatever, just give me a break. Excuse me. But if you give someone a $10,000 loan on a car, the par value is the $10,000. The higher the interest rate, okay, the more money it costs the person borrowing. It makes it more expensive. Cool Cat says, I'll make it simple. If you have $300 credit card, you can't spend $1,000. You're right. I'm just trying to. John Gale said, "Where's your mask?" I just said, look, John, if you're scared of getting sick through the mic, then you need to go somewhere else. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm in a room by myself. Fauci says that COVID could be transmissible through a podcast mic, though. So everyone in here is in danger. But that's called misinformation, guys. That's true misinformation. As interest rates rise, the cost of borrowing gets more expensive. It's no different if for those of you that have bought a house, you know that if you have a higher interest rate, your mortgage payment tends to be more. So what does that mean? That means you're going to borrow less money because you have a budget, a monthly payment. Let's say Podbean infection rates are up. They are. Maybe you can't. Maybe that is true. Maybe you can get sick. But you have a monthly budget. Let's say you could spend $1,000 a month on a mortgage. You're going to consider what your interest rate is and how much you need to borrow. And if it's like a 5% rate, then you can only borrow X amount of dollars because that's going to equal a $1,000 a month mortgage payment. As interest rates go down, the amount of money that you can borrow goes up because you're only paying back principal and not as much as interest, right? It has an inverse relationship. Lower interest rates, more borrowing. Higher interest rates, less borrowing. If you are the person making the loan, you want a higher interest rate and to give out less money because you're giving less cash up and you're getting a higher return on that money. It's the same thing with a bank and all that stuff. So when it comes to buying U.S. debt, it's the same thing. Okay, investors, people that are taking on the debt, they want to obviously put less money towards the debt, but they want to get a higher rate in return. The Fed will set these target interest rates to combat inflation. When we have inflation, there's a few different types of inflation, but basically supply exceeds demand. And there's too much money in circulation, or there's not enough goods on the shelf, and that causes prices to rise. To combat that, though, the Fed will raise their target interest rates. That means more people are going to want to go and purchase U.S. debt, and they pay cash, so the Federal Reserve or whoever's dealing out the debt is taking cash out of circulation. So they're lowering the supply of money in circulation in the economy. And that will bring escape loan sharks and buy the house in full amount. That's other financial advice, Cool Cat. Not everyone has the means to do that, but I do agree, if you could. Where I'm going with this, guys, I'm just trying to explain the relationship because the stuff I'm going to talk about today may get a little complicated for some. I'm really trying to cut out a lot of the bullshit that people have as far as the perspective of what's going on in our economy and why we're dealing with some of the stuff that we are. So the United States debt is the safest investment in the world. It is actually referred to as the risk-free rate, which means it's the interest rate you can receive on your investment, it almost risk-free. because the loans are pretty much guaranteed and backed by the faith and credit of the United States, which is the largest economy in the world, most prosperous country in the world. We have not defaulted on debt. As the risk-free rate goes up, then the investors in the stock market, the bigger investors, are looking at that and say, I can take less risk because everything is based on risk, especially with large hedge funds and banks and financial institutions and all that. Everything is risk assessed. Everything in life is based on risk. So as the risk-free rate goes up, people will pull money out of the stock market because it's a riskier investment, and they will go into buying U.S. debt and earning that risk-free rate. If you can earn 3% almost guaranteed or 4% pretty much guaranteed, why would you risk money in the stock market where you have a chance of losing 4, 5, 6% and only returning 9 or 10%? That's how people look at this. Cool Cat says that's the problem. People try to get stuff they can't afford. You're right. And that's a whole different problem. No, Cool Cat. So where I'm going now down with this, okay, is when it comes to debt and combating inflation, it's done through the Fed hiking their interest rates or hiking their target interest rates. Oh, so I'm going to put up pictures of these graphs for those of you on Podbean if you want to go over to Facebook and check it out. I have two charts, and these two charts are showing inflation, annual inflation rates, and Federal Reserve target interest rates. There's a direct correlation between inflation going up and interest rates going up. Obviously, interest rates will lag behind inflation. So as inflation goes up, then interest rates will start to rise. In 2018 was the last time the Fed really started talking about hiking interest rates. I pulled up an article. They expected to hike rates 4 times, and they wanted to do about 0.25%. They were going to go from 2.25% to 2.5%. And the S&P 500 finished out in 2018 down 6.59%. So you had a negative return in the stock market. S&P 500 is usually what I always look at because it's the top 500 companies, largest 500 companies in the United States. Negative 6.59%. So they only raised interest rates, or said they were going to, 0.25%. What we're dealing with now, okay, and just so you know, inflation was actually going down. As you can see, the graph on the left is showing inflation rates. The graph on the right is showing interest rates. In Trump's presidency, inflation actually, average annual inflation was going down. And then we were at 7% in 2021. This doesn't show 2021's number. It's between 1960 and 2020. Right now, our interest rates, if you look at the chart on the right, are at just almost at zero. They've returned to what they were between 2008-ish and 2015. So there's a lot of relationships with this. Interest rates at the Federal Reserve do not directly affect like mortgage interest rates. However, there's an indirect impact because it makes borrowing more expensive for reserve institutes to borrow from the Federal Reserve. And then when they lend that money out, they have to, again, charge a higher interest rate than what they're borrowing at so that they can make a profit. And that gives you a spread there. So by the time it gets to you to be lent out to you for a house or for a car, whatever you're going to buy for, you're paying a higher interest rate than what the banks are borrowing that money at. That's how they make money. That's just how it works. So the length of time of let's say it's a U.S. Treasury bond for 30 years, that is going to coincide with a 30-year mortgage on a house. And so thinking about the time period of your loan would coincide the interest rate on it with whatever the U.S. debt security for that amount of time would be. It'd be similar. And then you would pay a higher rate than that. But the reason why our housing market has just skyrocketed the past 2 years is because you can borrow at almost zero interest. Like you're paying, I pay about 4% on my mortgage. I bought the house in 2014. People could easily be paying 2 or 3% right now, which is nothing. Interest rates, as you can see, back in 1981, I think that is, just shy of 20%. So you see where interest rates have been. Inflation, the year prior, in 1980, was over 13%. So again, last year we were at 7%. It hasn't come close, except for this time period in the 1970s all the way to 1980. Did inflation ever reach levels like it is today? Again, this is only going back to 1960. So they went from 4% target rates, the Fed, in 1974-ish, 75-ish, to all the way up to just under 20% when inflation was at 13%. Woody Bush says, I renewed my mortgage at 2.5%. Now, Woody Bush, you're in Canada, so this is different, okay? You may have the same similar systems, and the concepts may be the same, but the numbers will be different. Maybe I can do an episode for my Canadian viewers one day and look at that, but I would have to do a lot of research to make sure I know what I'm talking about with that. But Dude Sean says, ooh. What's up, Dude Sean? Cool Cat says, you're tied down with a bond. It's better to buy precious metals. Now, Cool Cat, I have seen a lot of contradicting research on how precious metals help combat with inflation. Look, because of my securities license, I am not going to sit here and give any financial advice on what investments. I'm just explaining a correlation. What's up, Gen 6? So I have to be careful what I say. But overall, in the long term, the actual equities in the stock market tend to be the best hedge against inflation. Not in the short term. I'm not talking about in the short term. So it's not saying, oh, inflation's going up this year, so you need to buy stock. No, it's just as a long term, it's the best hedge. But this is where this graph just shows you where we have been in the country. On the left, that's inflation rates. Okay. And then on the right is how the Fed will combat inflation. And you see where they hike interest rates. It's a direct correlation. So when they say that right now the Fed is expecting to hike rates 7 times within this next year. Cool Cat. Cool Cat says, for those of you not watching on Facebook, he said he doesn't agree with what I said as far as the equities being the best hedge. Look, there's a lot of different things on research, right? That's just what I've read, and that's what a lot of studies have shown. Okay, again, when it comes to investments in the markets, you gotta really dive into it. There's positives and negatives to all of it and different ways to use it. I just gotta be really careful with how I go into detail on it. But like I was saying, there is a direct correlation between Fed raising interest rates and inflation. We had 7% inflation last year. Like I said, in 2018, the stock market had a negative return of 6.59%. A lot of that was due to the Fed saying they wanted to hike interest rates, and it was only they went from 2.25% to 2.5%. Now they're saying they want to do 7 rate hikes within this year, between 1% and 2%. So they're gonna 4 times more what they projected to do in 2018, and they're going to do twice as many. So you can see where this stock market, people may have a bleak outlook on returns in the stock market. One person says, "Save your cash." Sorry, the names are if you're a Podbean guest, it's not having a name pop up. That's why I didn't mean to address you as somebody. But he said, "Where do you see average mortgage rates end of 2022?" Again, I don't. My projection is as good as a monkey throwing a dart at a dartboard blindfolded, as is any other economist. Is 4%? I mean, it could if they actually go through and hike rates. It wouldn't be unseen. They may be higher, they may be slightly lower. Again, what I will say is they're going up. And like I said, mortgage rates are not directly tied to the Fed rates, but there's an indirect relationship. It all it's like trickle-down economics. Like I always say, trickle-down economics trickles down. All the bad stuff trickles down. The good stuff may not, but the bad stuff does. So when rates go up, it trickles down into borrowing. And the reason why you can expect the rates to go up slightly is because they need to pull money out of circulation. He said investment in real estate is a good hedge. Could be. And one thing you do see when the economy goes to shit, more people rent. As interest rates go up, again, I'm not speculating here. Okay, I'm just going off the top of a conceptual, from a conceptual point of view. If interest rates go up and the cost of borrowing becomes more expensive, you're either going to see the value of houses fall, or less people are going to go and borrow and they're going to rent. So if more people are renting, he said, Cool Cat said, with Carter inflation was 6.8%, then Reagan came in and won all 50 states. Yeah, well, it was actually higher, Cool Cat, in 1980, which would have been Reagan's first year, but again, it would have been due to stuff going on in 1979 and prior. Inflation was at like 13. It was double what it was last year at 7%. It was just under 14%. So inflation has been higher. Okay, it's not unheard of. The difference, though, here's the difference. I wanted to post this, but I didn't really have time. I was going on Excel. In 2020, let me find out where it's at here. In 2020, we printed 15% more money than has ever been printed in any years prior. So the supply of money in the economy, which is cash, I'm talking about cold hard cash, that was dished out in the economy, was, let me find it here, increased 15% in 2020. That is not counting 2021 yet. And the reason why that's important is because there was another large stimulus package that was passed in 2021. So that supply of money plus the infrastructure deal could be more. It could be another like 8% or so. I bring that up because, let me see. I had it somewhere here, guys. Give me a sec. Maybe this was it. Nope. Maybe it's on Excel. Yeah. So every year, the average increase in cash that was available, like cold hard cash that the United States has, that's everyone, that's my money, your money, everything, cold hard cash, was increased an average of 6.19%. The supply of it. In 2020, the supply increased 15.96%. That's going back to 2000. So from 2000 to 2019, it averaged 6.19%. In 2020, it was up 15.96%. So now you know why prices of all these products are more. It's a direct cause. Okay? What's up, Corey? It's a direct cause, direct relationship. If you have too much of something, it becomes less valuable because there's less demand for it. This is a way of thinking that a lot of people, particularly on the left, and I say this only about people on the left because it shows in their policy, the policies that they try to implement, especially with spending. They don't understand that concept of, first of all, there's a scarce amount of resources, and how allocation and stuff works. There is only so much oil in the world. There's only so many trees in the world. There's only so many cars to be bought. There's only so many houses to be bought. Obviously, you can build more, but it takes resources to build those houses, right? If you build houses out of wood, you're building it out of a scarce resource. Scarce means it's not unlimited. There's nothing unlimited other than stupidity in this world. All right? There's if stupidity is not a scarce resource, it's pretty damn close because there's a lot of it. But when it comes to a lot of this, you also have to have buyers. Like, if we had 100 houses being sold in Middle Tennessee, you need 100 buyers. If there's not 100 buyers and there's only 9 buyers, then the value of the houses is going to fall because the people selling those houses has to compete with each other. Competition drives everything too. If you had 5 buyers for 10 houses, the prices are going to fall significantly more. That's how it works. Now, if you have 20 buyers for 10 houses, the prices of those houses are going to go up because the buyers are competing for the supply at that point. It switches hands. And there has to be a market, but right now we're building homes. And I haven't checked the latest data on the real estate markets and all that stuff, so I'm not up to date on all this. One guy says the free cheese crew, yeah, with the Democrats guys. But we can only build so many houses in this world. All right. Why does Elon Musk say that we need to go to electric vehicles instead of oil? Well, it isn't necessarily climate reasons. It's because oil is a limited supply. But as it is right now, sunlight is not limited, only on certain days, right? So you can have solar energy, electric energy. They think they can help come up with that, especially have the ways of creating electricity, like turbines and flowing water and all that stuff. It seems to be a slightly more renewable than oil. But all in all, nothing is unlimited. And when it comes to the economy, you have a lot of people wanting to buy food. And there's certain aspects that are affecting supply chain that is lowering the supply of food. And a lot of people have a lot of money in your pocket because you can go get a loan for hardly anything. They handed out $2,000 a piece in stimulus. Joe Biden gave people with children $3,500 a month or $3,500 annually per child this last year. They put a lot of cash into the economy in the regular people's pockets in one form or another. Okay, and there's other things like a virus or whatever reason, whether it be laziness and lack of, willing to work or whatever it may be, that are affecting the supply chain. So it's crushed. You have a double-edged sword. You have supply being crushed. You have demand going way up for these basic products, and you have people have a lot of money to pay for it. So that's the relationship, right? What we're seeing is, out of the 3 types of inflation, we're seeing 2 of them. We're seeing an increase in supply of money, plus a decrease in demand, or an increase or decrease in supply of the goods that the money's going to buy. So I hope my live stream was not just impacted by that phone call. But that's kind of how the debt works. I wanted to clear that up, how inflation is fueled, how inflation is combated, And then I showed those charts on Facebook for those of you that didn't see or want to go back and check on Podbeam after I upload the video, the relationship between interest rates and inflation rates. If the stock market takes a dive, again, it's not a forever thing, but not everyone can be long-term investors. Maybe if you're older, you don't have the same time horizons. There's a lot of factors. But when the stock market goes down, ordinary Americans are hurt by it. Why? Because over 50% of the United States, citizens in the United States, or workers in the United States at least, are saving for retirement in the form of, an IRA or a 401k or in the market. And yeah, you may own a mutual fund. Those mutual funds hold the stocks that are getting crushed in the market. It's not just the rich people that are invested in this stuff. Like I say, and I'm going to keep preaching it, trickle-down economics works damn well when it comes to increasing taxes, increasing expenses, and passing on bad returns. All the negative shit in the economy trickles down from the top 1% to the lower middle class. It's like running water. So maybe the Republican or the fake Republican version, because it's not even the Republican version of traditional trickle-down economics and what it's thought to be. You give tax cuts to the rich and it bleeds down to the lower middle class. Yeah, maybe, first of all, it's not real, but maybe it doesn't work. But the Democrat form, the liberal form of trickle-down economics, and I say it's the liberal form because they're the ones always wanting to take more from the rich and increase taxes and all that shit, all of that does trickle down to the lower middle class in a bad way. It's not a one-way street. So that's kind of the outlook on the economy here. Again, I'm not a speculator, and I have said this before. No one can predict the future. If I had to guess, I would say obviously interest rates are going up, so mortgage rates are going to go up. It's going to make the cost of borrowing more expensive, and I think that the real estate market is going to be negatively impacted by that, and the stock market will be negatively impacted by that. It will be in the short term. Again, in my opinion, this is not going to be a forever thing. Thank you. Someone said I make some good points. Again, I don't address you by your name because it's just a bunch of letters, and I apologize. But let's see, on Facebook, let me go back and read some of these on Facebook. Cool Cat says, I'm giving you the average figure on the internet. I read somewhere it's not 7% now, but actually 24%. And you're talking about inflation, Cool Cat. And he said, so who's going to buy a $100,000 house today unless you're rich? What do you mean? Well, $100,000 house today, a lot of people buy that. Again, it all depends on the situation. But he said, nobody is giving me anything and I'm poor. And that's, again, not all poor people are taking from the government. Slightly said, where the hell are you going to find a $100,000 house? I think he was just giving an example, right? Just throwing a number out there. Look, on this show, we speak, Eric, can you, I guess it doesn't matter. There's no sound on the other thing. I just want to make sure the sound was good on Facebook. But
sound's still working.
Awesome. He said Steve. Awesome, Steve. From Maine. Okay. Cold as hell right now in Maine. Or at least snowy, I think, isn't it? But with just my outlook, again, like I said, my opinion and my perspective is about as accurate as a monkey that's blindfolded throwing darts at a dartboard. I just think that the housing market will take a short-term dip, and the stock market will as well. The stock market, obviously, this year has gotten crushed, at least this past month. Ray Bexey says, I got a rate of 2.875% in April last year. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That is awesome. He said, John Gale says, hey, don't insult monkeys. No, it's a compliment to monkeys because they outperform the smartest economists and market speculators in the world. This is actually proven. They were, I read a study, and some of the smartest economists, doctors from Harvard, all that stuff, made predictions on elections, the economy, the stock market, all that stuff. They were right less than 50% of the time, which means you had a better chance of flipping a fucking coin and making your prediction than listening to one of these so-called professionals. Why? Well, a lot of it is because there's no consequence for being wrong. That's a whole nother topic that I've discussed, and we're not going to get into today. But, again, in the short term, housing market down, and stock market down. How much? I don't know. And you have to understand, we've been through this before. Interest rates have been 20 times higher than they are right now. And people were still buying houses in the 70s. Again, I wasn't alive, but the real estate market was still happening. And people were still investing in the stock market. But I'm just trying to lay out information that you can take and hopefully I make it understandable enough to where you can go and do more research and have an understanding of what you're reading. Cool Cat says the housing market will crash because most people can't afford homes. Yes. Here's the thing. When Joe Biden starts saying that people are getting raises and people are making more money now with their jobs. You know, McDonald's is paying $11 an hour or whatever. Yeah, they're trying, these businesses are trying to pay their employees and keep up with inflation. But the problem is that real earnings, which is inflation-adjusted earnings, are actually negative. This is, again, all data that is on Federal Reserve or Department of Labor website. When I talk about the economy, I try to get it off of government websites. Real wages are negative. It doesn't matter how much fucking pay raise you got. If you're not outpacing inflation or keeping up with inflation, it's worth zero, or you're going backwards. It's the same thing when you have money in a savings account. If you're earning 1% in a savings account, and inflation is 7% annually, you just lost 6%, even though you made money on your original investment. The value of the money just lost 6%. So that's something that you have to take into consideration. By the way, how do Americans own the majority of the United States debt? A lot of it comes in the form of like a savings account or money market accounts, things like that. Those are all tied to U.S. debt. That's how banks are giving out interest rates. There's a lot of ways indirectly that you're tied to the debt in the United States government, even if you're not directly purchasing the debt security itself. Cool Cat says it's $11 an hour with a $5 union fee, only in some states and only in some jobs. Not everyone's in a union, but I do get what you're saying. Let's see, on Podbeam, Slightly says, let's see, going back, I apologize, we got a lot of comments coming in. Slightly says, I think in places such as Texas, Arizona, Las Vegas, I don't believe it's going to slow down with the demand so high from people leaving California. The rest of the country, I believe, you're correct though. So Slightly, just to hit on that before I go on to the next topic, I think you're right. That's a good outlook. I like where you're heading there with the population of people moving from California. The problem is they're spreading throughout different states, right? They're not just concentrated going to Texas, all of them, or all of them going to Florida, or all of them going to Tennessee, or whatever. Here's what will change that, though, and I want you to think about this. This is what I think. And Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan, they are saying they have to keep the increase of the SALT tax deduction, which is increasing from $10,000 deduction to $80,000, which is a major tax cut for the rich, and particularly in blue states that have a higher SALT tax, which is your state and local taxes. If they are able to pass that, or they break it up into pieces like Biden wants to do, and maybe that's in one of the pieces that they pass, that SALT tax deduction cap increase, you're going to see less people moving from California, because now they can actually deduct more on their taxes and pay less in federal income taxes. So it'll be more beneficial to stay. There was actually an article I read, I can't remember off the top of my head. I wrote an article on this a while ago about the Build Back Better deal and that SALT tax, how it's Biden's BBB deal is actually a major tax cut for the rich and as not a tax cut at all for the lower middle class. But the reason why the Democrats want that increase in the SALT tax deduction is because they are losing so many people. So many people are moving out of their states and going to other states that don't have the state income tax. And they're getting crushed on their tax revenue. So that is what I think. I think you're right. People will move out of California. So some places may not feel the effect of the real estate market as much. In certain cities, like here in Murfreesboro, we have a college, we have the Nissan factory, we have a lot going for us. And I think in 08, 09, it really didn't have all that much of an impact on the real estate market here. But, so there's certain cities that have demand where people will keep moving to. But just as a country as a whole, that's where, that's the stuff that you can expect. California says they won't have to worry. They have plenty of illegal aliens to move in. Yeah, well, we're going down different topics than I wanted to discuss. Maybe at the end we'll get into that. Cool Cat, it's not dead yet. They're going to try and get it passed. They're going to try and break it up. This is what they've been talking about this past month. I thought it was dead too. It's not, though. They're still pushing it. In fact, Biden, a couple of days ago, had a huge speech on it, trying to promote it still. So we're not out of the clear yet with that Build Back Better deal. Or the voting rights either. I'm telling you, they're going to do whatever they can. They don't have much time. They only have till November. They're going to try and pass out. His goal is to break it up into pieces and get it passed. So, just beware. The next thing. When it comes to these conflicts like Ukraine, and these and I've been tweeting about this lately. And I actually had a post on Facebook about this. Cool Cat, you actually replied to this. But, so Cool Cat says, how without Manchin and Sinema with the BBB deal? Again, I don't know the logistics behind how they're going to pass it. I'm just telling you what they're trying to push still. For whatever reason, the Democratic Party, and Biden in particular, does not think that bill is dead. He talked about breaking it up in his little 3-hour shit show speech a couple weeks ago and trying to pass it in pieces. So I don't know. I haven't looked at it anymore since he talked about it as far as what his goals are to pass it without Manchin and Sinema's vote, but we will see. Let's go to some foreign topics though. This conflict in Ukraine and Russia. I've been saying from the beginning, we should not be involved with foreign shit like this. Why the fuck do we care about Ukraine? Ukraine, slightly, okay, you're going where I'm going with this too. It is ironic. Ukraine was a part of Russia, or not Russia, but the Soviet Union, which is basically Russia, before, and only, since 1990, when did the Soviet Union fall? 91? 90, 91? Did it become its own place? Here's the other thing. I think our quick fix for defending these countries is we are not going to... The one thing I agreed with Joe Biden on, that he said with Afghanistan, was he said that why should Americans die for a country and a cause that their own citizens are not willing to die for? That's the best thing he has ever said. I agree 100%. If we are going to defend a country, I think I'm Michael Key's president right now. Okay, here's what I'm talking about in my presidential bid. For us to go and defend a foreign country like Ukraine, they have to implement a Second Amendment that mirrors ours and arm their citizens, or allow their citizens the opportunity to go out and buy firearms. And when I talk about firearms, I'm talking about the exact same ones we're allowed to have here in the United States. And then when they do, they have to buy those firearms from the United States. So we get the sale of the guns and the weapons. We'll use that revenue for whatever bullshit thing the Democrats want to use it for, whatever. But their citizens in those countries now have the ability to defend their homeland. Why? Because a country is so worried about having citizens shoot each other or crime and all that stuff. Why the fuck should we have to send our military, our teenagers, and our young men to support a cause that has nothing to do with us because the country wants a better little society or whatever the fuck they think they agree with and disarm their citizens? So you want to take away the ability for your citizens to defend themselves against enemies, foreign and domestic, and you want to have complete control over them. But when the shit hits the fan, you're calling us to come help. It starts with you. It starts with you. I've said this before. I truly do not believe that the Nazis would have been able to successfully invade France and Poland and other European countries had their citizens had the right to bear arms. And I'm not talking about hunting rifles. I'm talking about same ones we are allowed here in the United States. And someone goes, well, those won't protect you against tanks and jets. First of all, why does everyone always assume that when it comes to defending ourselves against, let's say, our own government, that the military is just going to fight U.S. citizens? That shit ain't going to happen because most of the majority would probably be on the side of the U.S. citizens, for one. For two, if someone wanted to invade us, like, why didn't Japan start bombing our mainland and do a landing in L.A. or in Florida? We have we have a whole coast of nice, pristine beaches. They could have had their D-Day. Why didn't they do it? Because they knew. They knew that that shit wasn't going to happen. You have more guns than people here in the United States. And we have a lot of people that are just waiting for someone to overstep. Do you really think that Poland would have fallen as fast as it did if it fell at all? If all of their citizens were able to fight? No. Hell no. French wouldn't have been taken over, nothing. But no, the fucking United States had to go over there and help them out. Look, if you need the help, I get it. Cool Cat says I sound like Michael Moore. How so? That's a bad compliment. That's terrible. Read about Neville Chamberlain. That's a bad compliment. I sound like Michael Moore. He's terrible. Thanks, Cool Cat. But I'm serious. Why is this so hard? Why? Think about this. Answer this for me. Who has successfully taken over Afghanistan? No one? Ever? Why? Well, I think the war in Iraq and then definitely the war in Afghanistan got a hell of a lot harder when we had to start fighting people that look like regular citizens. John Gale says the Taliban. And what is the Taliban? The Taliban is a militia created basically. Someone wants to call in. Hello? Oh. Guess Philip was. Oh, what's up, Philip? Hello? Can you hear us? Guess he's not going to talk. But because you're both against defending Ukraine. Well, I think it's a pretty easy thing. Again, I'm all for helping people if they need help. But you got to be willing to help yourself. And I hate that it's, these countries, oh God, we do not want our citizens to have guns. We are just, we are against violence and we are against, you know, we don't want any shootings or whatever, right? But then all of a sudden, now look where you're at. Especially a country like Ukraine, where they've had these issues with Russia. Like, this is not new. Russia wanting to take back Ukraine is nothing new, and they did it with Crimea. Why would you not prepare yourself for this? Because the government wants control, but they, for whatever reason, don't realize that with government control comes consequences. To build off of that, we have our military spending budget. And I want to clear this up because you have so many people that bitch about how much we are spending on our military. And I was on Reddit, again, with Reddit, and on a liberal subreddit, they talked about, the United States spends $800 billion a year on its military budget for nuclear warheads and other bombs and military bases. But we can't do something else, like whatever, healthcare or whatever. No. First of all, roughly half of the military spending goes towards the benefits for veterans, which those are well-deserved in my opinion. If not, they need more. And payroll for our military, because we have a full 100% volunteer military. That's why they're so good. So half of that is literally for those reasons. So if you're cutting out military spending, you're going to cut out all that. Now, where we could cut military spending is in NATO. We can immediately save about $95 billion this year alone if we just cut our percentage that we're paying down to what every other country is paying in NATO. The other thing I would say, I don't think Trump pushed hard enough on this, I would have fucking went all in, is Germany should be paying fucking everyone's portion of NATO. Because they're the reason that we have NATO. The Germans now, or it's funny because the Germans, and I'm sorry if anyone's German listening to this, but the Germans don't, we're so good, we accept everyone, blah, 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 blah. Like, they didn't fucking kill 6 million people, 3/4 of a century ago. And actually responsible for the deaths of like 30 or 40 million people in Europe. Not once, but twice, or 2 wars they fucking started. Major wars. Why are they not on the hook for this? So, all right, we got someone else calling. What's up, Kenny? Hello?
What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good. Just, you got a... He said cut the military. That's Michael Moore. Shut up, cool cat. He's giving me shit. Look, just because
Sorry, you just talk really quick. I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, I was responding to a comment on Facebook. One of my viewers has been comparing me to Michael Moore. Obviously, mine and Michael Moore's views are nothing alike, but the end result of where we're getting at is similar. So he's giving me a hard time here. But what's going on, Kenny? You got any opinion kind of on what we've been talking about, or any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I agree for the most part, but like, what do you think about it hurts because I feel for the people who don't have the kind of voice that we have. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And
yeah.
You're saying like maybe the citizens of Ukraine that aren't able to defend themselves, we should help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, my problem doesn't lie with the citizens of Ukraine. I don't want that to be misconstrued, okay? Not at all. I do not hate the people of Ukraine at all. Okay? I feel sorry for them that they're dealing with this. I don't think anyone should have to live in a country where they're worrying about being invaded. But the fact of the matter is that's a reality in our world. With that said, I'm looking more at the government and their policies and why they're in the situation that they're in, right? And that's just what I'm basing my opinion on, because you understand, Joe Biden or whoever the president would be in this situation, he's not communicating with the citizens. He's communicating with the government, trying to find solutions on, okay, are we going to help them? Are we not going to help them? Whatever it is, right? And I'm just stating my opinion of what I think should be the requirements for us to risk American lives, because we're also talking about Russia. We're not talking about some, Iraq military that didn't even want to fight, and we ran through them in a month. We're talking about a country that has been a rival to us since World War II. And they are a very powerful military. It would be the strongest military other than the German military in World War II, as far as how advanced they are, that we faced. And, that's just things that need to be thought about. And, I just, there's a lot of, it's a complicated matter. But would you not agree that helping someone is fine, but they got to be willing to help themselves too? And when it comes to your way of life, we're talking about like an invasion. If Ukraine really didn't want to be a part of Russia that bad, then they need to do whatever it took to defend themselves against that outcome.
Isn't that what they're doing?
What's that?
Sorry. Isn't that what they're doing?
I mean, they are with their military, yeah. But
yeah,
their military is only so strong.
And they're making appeals to NATO.
Yeah, but now they're asking other countries. That's where I'm getting at, right? Because now you're asking other countries whose problem, it isn't anyone else's problem, but you're asking other countries to die, okay, to risk the lives of their people.
You're making a real weak argument, though, because asking other countries to die on behalf of whatever thing that you say that they have to die for, it was agreed in advance
for NATO, not Ukraine. Ukraine's not in NATO.
Not officially, but you know that it is. It's the same argument that the Russia makes opposite. It's like the Ukraine's not NATO, and then NATO is like, okay, but like it is kind of whatever. It is. For all intents and purposes, Ukraine is NATO, and that's how the world is treating
it. Yeah, and now let me expand my argument then, okay? And I've said this before. I don't know if I said it on my show, but I said it last night. I think on Dude Sean's show for sure. I think that there are only a few allies, truthfully, that we should actually go all in for defending. And that is the UK and other members of their Commonwealth, like Australia or something like that. But the UK, France, Japan, and Israel. And then South Korea, because we started, we were allowed to do with everything over there too. But other than that, like Germany and all these other countries, nope. And I know they're part of NATO. Again, this is an opinion, okay? I said Israel, Eric. I put Israel in there. So this is just an opinion, right? But other countries in Europe, they need to, they're not paying the same amount that we are NATO spending. We're paying double percentage-wise. So we're paying like 20 times or 30 times some countries' actual dollar amount in NATO spending, but we're not the ones that need it. If we truly broke it down, the United States does not need the help. It's nice to have the help, but we don't need it.
Yeah, you're missing kind of the point. I mean, they have the location, So they hold. It doesn't matter that they can't pay the portion. They hold the legitimate claim to the land in the area, and therefore, because they're affiliated with us, we must pay their cost because they hold the official claim. It's all. It's
I get what
property.
you're saying. You're right. You're right. You're right. Look,
they have the property claim, and because they're allies with us, we will defend them because they have the property claim. That's what it is.
I know. Like I said, a lot of what I'm saying here is of opinion, okay? And let me tell you how I think about that, because you're right, okay? But at the same time, where this started, where this went downhill, is the way we negotiated all this after World War II. Because what should have been done is when we went over and liberated all of these countries, part of that, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to have a base wherever the fuck we want to have it, okay? And we're going to basically, you can have NATO, but you're paying for it because of what we did to help you overcome, and liberate you during World War II. So that's where I think it should have started, right? The problem is in the United States, we want to be too giving and fair to other countries. Why is Germany not paying reparations to every country, in the United States in particular, for what they did? They should have to pay every year. They should be paying the majority of everyone else's NATO membership, in my opinion, because they caused that.
That's not fair.
Why isn't it fair? They caused it. It was their fault.
No. Neither of the wars was Germany's fault.
How was the war in Europe not Germany's fault in World War II? How was
Do
World
you
War
think
II?
Do you think the people of Germany wanted war?
They put Adolf Hitler into power.
Yes, and the people of any country put in a bad leader at any other point in time. It just happened. They threw the die and they selected a leader who happened to throw them into
threw the dice on Adolf Hitler.
Yes, they didn't know. They couldn't possibly have known. They thought
they threw the dice on Stalin too.
No. Well, they did, yeah.
No,
yeah,
they didn't, because Stalin wasn't the first communist leader. After the Bolshevik Revolution,
yeah. No. But before Stalin, they didn't get to throw the die, and they had a bad roll on that, and that's the reason that World War II happened in Russia. So I don't know what your argument is, man. Like you're saying, like somebody holds fault for world problems. There's no single person that holds fault.
What do you mean? Okay, so was it not Japan's fault for attacking Pearl Harbor and us going to start a war with them? There's a direct causation. Was it not their fault?
Yes, there is. You're correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Germany, right? They invaded Poland. Hold on. Nothing was happening. Now, Germany obviously had a lot of issues, but nothing happened until they invaded Poland in 1939. With the whole Blitzkrieg and all that stuff. They went into Poland, they killed over 1 million Polish. Then Hitler also decided that he was going to keep going into Russia and then come east or west into France, and he took over all of Europe, and he also pushed down into northern Africa for oil. He did that. He went and invaded those countries. And Hitler was put into power by the German people. There's a direct causation in World War II.
It's not the. I don't think we're arguing the same points.
Well, I'm just saying, look, a lot of what I am saying as far as how I think it should be handled is of opinion, okay? I'm well aware of.
We're both arguing from opinion. Yeah. Neither of us have claimed that it's a fact.
And Hitler happened because we made Germans pay for World War I. You're right. That guy. You're right. Now, the Holocaust deal is a different thing. Okay, but the Germans also elevated World War I to a level of a world war. Why did Germany? They were literally the largest instigators in that whole thing. So they also started that war. So they put themselves in that position to be in the economic downturn and the problems that they had after World War I that led to Adolf Hitler being elected and put into power. So again, going back to prior to World War I, it was still Germany's fault.
The Treaty of Versailles was bullshit, and a non-German talking about it like it was bullshit. They told Germany, "Hey, World War I, your fault. You need to deal with every single consequence that came from that. It's your fault. We put the whole First World War on Germany's shoulders. And then we said, you can't do anything about it. And we expected compliance. It's not going to happen. We a whole country, we said, hey, listen, this whole very complicated endeavor across multiple countries, across years, your fault. We pointed the blame at Germany. That's what caused World War II. The Treaty of Versailles. It was us as a united people of the earth saying, you individually, Germany, was the fault. It was we could have avoided World War II if we could have come up with a better resolution for the end of World War One. Like it's stupid. Okay. I don't understand.
So I'll agree on part of that, but then we have to take in another large cause, another large issue that occurred during World War II. Okay, that was a result of World War I, but there's a lot of speculation as to the exact reason why. And the Treaty of Versailles had nothing to do with this, and that's the Holocaust, because Hitler himself still probably would have wanted to come into power. Okay, and now would he have been able to? I don't know, but if let's say he did, he still would have went and killed a bunch of Jews too.
No, stop, because would he have? That's the whole thing. Could Hitler have come into power without that? We don't know.
It's speculation, right? This is just speculation. Okay, so we're discussing this. Right, I'm not saying you're wrong. And
you're go ahead.
But what I'm saying is, okay, should there be consequences? Well, I want to. No, this is a good conversation. This is what I wanted to talk about. I'm glad you called.
I know. I like talking to you. Go ahead.
Should there be any consequences when these countries, so like Japan, I would say the consequence to them doing what they did obviously resulted in us dropping 2 nuclear warheads on them. Okay?
That's a hard.
I know. What I'm saying is it ended there, and then look at where they're at now, right? We didn't really penalize them too much further. We helped rebuild them, right? And they're one of the most prosperous economies in the world. South Korea as well, but North Korea is not.
Yeah.
But South Korea wasn't, well, there's a lot of the whole issue around Korea, but South Korea actually fought with us. Okay, they weren't like a instigator in that war.
I mean that's why they're prosperous now. Because
but some of these other countries that start a war, okay, should we? Because look at Iraq. We tried to rebuild Iraq, and look where it's at now. Didn't work. Afghanistan, we tried to rebuild, and we still weren't able to help them. It still fell. We failed. What should we do? Should we have just help Germany out after World War I, or should we penalize them for the literally 25 million people that died as a result of that war that they started?
Germany was penalized.
I know. I'm saying should we not penalize them?
Oh,
that's what I'm asking you, because I know what happened, obviously, and that obviously led to some of the stuff.
We couldn't have helped it. That is a fault of war. That's something that is regrettable on both sides, if they're being honest.
If you're gonna look back,
Like,
right, you got to ask and say,
yeah, no. The Allies committed atrocities. We did,
mm-hmm.
and invading Berlin, we raped and we pillaged and we did all the horrible things.
Are you talking about World War II though?
Yeah, World War II.
I'm
yeah,
going back to
Berlin.
World War One. After World War One, what could we have done after World War One? Because we hammered Germany's economy after World War One. Should we have penalized them for their instigation of that whole conflict that resulted to 25 million people dying? Or should we have just helped them out?
But they didn't instigate World War One.
They did.
They were just an ally.
Who did we fight? Who did the French fight? The British fight, and the United States fight primarily in that war.
I mean, you know the story. The Archduke was assassinated.
Yeah.
The Archduke of Siberia.
Yeah.
And then he was an ally of Germany. Germany didn't start World War One.
So why did Germany Germany start fighting a multi-front war in there? If they didn't, why wouldn't they have just invaded the other country?
Because at that point in history, they were a nation who felt threatened, and they had a bad government. If they had a better government, they would have just accepted it.
So it comes down to governments that were put in. We're going back to it wasn't necessarily the people's fault because Germany's a very old country, right? It's like blaming the monarchy on the British citizens. What I'm saying is that, but the government sounds like a problem. Look, my problem has never been with the people of any of these countries, okay? But the governments, for whatever reason, okay, are not held accountable a lot of times. And I'm just saying that the United States...
Not a lot of the times. Never.
Okay, so we agree on that. The United States went over to World War II and liberated all of Europe, okay? Because if you remember rightly, the English weren't able to do that. And the French were completely taken over and occupied, okay? If we didn't go and fight in Europe, I don't think we would have had the same outcome. So, why is the United States have to be responsible to help all these countries out when, and we had to pay more? Why couldn't part of that deal been, well, we're going to pay an equal amount in NATO, and you're going to let us have a base at wherever we want for helping you out?
Man, you're so knowledgeable in history, and you have such a weird angle for it. Oh man, it's so weird.
Well,
why are you worried about the United States paying money?
Well, because the reason I bring this up, okay, is there's a lot of controversy
you understand why that's weird? Like you know a lot about history, at least in the world wars.
Well, what do you mean? Why am I worried about the United States paying money? That's my money.
Your final answer is like, man, the United States paid so much
because
for
it's
it.
my
Holy
money.
Shit.
It's your money. It's people's money. It's their tax dollars. It's not the government's money. The government doesn't have its own money. It's our money, the people. Especially here in the United States where we don't have a monarchy that's wealthy. It's my money that's paying for causes when we have people, whether it be the right or the left, that bitch every day about all these issues they want to try and fix here in the United States. But we have a lot of money that we waste overseas, right? Would you not agree? We have a lot of money we waste overseas. There's only so much money. Printing money doesn't work, as we see this past year with inflation and all that stuff. Okay, it doesn't work.
Fuck, dude. Man, you and I are aligned, but like in like weirdly different ways. I fuck. Like I agree with you, but I also disagree with you at the same time. It's so strange.
And that's great. And that's why I think that there's a lot of value to be had, especially with Colin, and I like this conversation. Again, a lot of people on the right and left I think, have a lot of the same values. It's just how they get there, right? And their reasoning and their basis.
No, but the right and left doesn't matter. Like
I know.
the right
I
and
just use
left
them
is
as an
like
example.
It's some bullshit invented to protect the government, essentially.
Sava's calling in. What's up, Sava?
Hey, Sava.
Hey, what's up? I kind of came into the conversation just a little bit ago, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why you guys aren't talking about the history of the Russian Industrial Revolution and the Ashkenazis that did what they did to Russia before moving on to Germany.
I wasn't talking about it because I don't know fucking anything about that.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
You're talking about before they moved on to Germany.
I'm totally ignorant about
the Nazi
that,
Party.
so
the Nazi Party was born in Germany.
The Ashkenazis. No, it wasn't. No, the Ashkenazis, the original Nazis, the Ashkenazi Jews, they invaded Russia and raped them, brutalized them.
When was this?
Fucked them up during the Russian Industrial Revolution.
Are you talking about the Russian Civil War and the Bolshevik Revolution?
No, there's an industrial word in there.
If you're going back further, then I'm not sure. I'm just talking. We're kind of just talking about from
because
World War I on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I am going a little bit farther back because it all plays a part in it.
Yeah,
so,
well,
okay.
It does, I guess, but that's not what we're talking about, though.
I know, but you guys are missing something that is crucial because you're wondering why this, why that.
Okay. What's the crucial thing we're missing?
So the Ashkenazis had a thing against Russia because Russia kicked them out of their country.
Okay.
And what?
I said okay.
Okay.
No, keep going.
And so if you go a little bit farther back, during the Khazarian era, I don't know if you know anything about that, but
Nope.
they, were sacrificing children and killing travelers that came through their country. And when they were invaded by neighboring countries, they wanted to put a stop to all that, and they forced them to change religions, and they chose Judaism, and then they settled in the it's like the Ashkenaz country. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but that's how they became the Ashkenazi Jews. And then they were forced to find other places to live, and they tried to settle in Russia. They got kicked out of Russia. They got kicked out of a bunch of countries, but Russia, they really had something against Russia for whatever happened with them. And so, they went back and they invaded them, and they fucked them up. And then so a lot of the footage that was actually shown in middle school history class, when they were teaching us about the Holocaust, of the mass graves, the bodies being just dumped into these mass graves, that's actually footage from that particular war, not the Holocaust. And the original Holocaust happened in Russia. And actually, the Holocaust means to sacrifice innocence.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
What's up,
yeah.
Eric?
Have you been retarded your whole life, or is that just recent?
All right. We don't. I insult things
you
I talk about,
like you're
but don't.
fucking retarded yourself.
All right. Look, don't insult each other, though. Don't insult each other, okay? I know I talk a lot of shit and I insult a lot of stuff that I talk about, but don't insult each other. Try to refrain from that.
She just said the Holocaust is not real, and anyone who says that is retarded.
Yeah.
I didn't say that it wasn't real. You fucking.
No,
okay,
you
know
only
Goodbye.
heavily
Sorry. I thought we were gonna have a real
like
conversation.
5 minutes
She didn't say the Holocaust wasn't real. She was saying that
You're right.
that
you're right.
She was talking about something completely different, first of all. But let's guys. Salva, please be more willing to call back in. But the whole thing I wanted to get at with this, okay, is we are where we are right now. Obviously, hey, Salva, go ahead and try that again. I missed it. We are where we're at right now. Okay, regardless of what happened in the past, we can't fix that. But going ahead in the future, okay, we can do certain things that I think that regardless of why Ukraine is going to be invaded by Russia, all right, I don't see it as a benefit to the United States to even get involved, especially when it was a country. No, it was a part of the Soviet Union not very long ago. And
we
Kenny,
need to stay here and take care of ourselves.
Yes. Kenny, please feel free to call back in. I don't know if he's here still or not. I think he left.
Why are you even talking to him? He's drunk.
I don't know who he is. He called in, and I allow everyone to call in.
John Gill and I, and even slightly thought he sounded incoherent or something.
Look,
and I didn't like him talking over people either.
Everyone has a voice on this show. Okay, I don't care who you are. Everyone has a voice on this show. I have said multiple times, I am not here to censor anybody, whether it's on my Facebook page or wherever. Okay, whether your opinion is right, wrong, or indifferent. If I don't agree with it, then I will debate it and tell you why I don't agree. Okay, and try and do it with fact, but I'm not here to censor anybody.
I get that. I respect that. I'm just saying, why are you having that kind of conversation? Why are you trying to have a serious conversation with somebody that's all, you know?
Just bring
but
up
anyways, he's
points.
A perfect example of people who are brainwashed.
Well, he was debating my argument I made and with my opinion. And that's just what led us down that road to have that conversation, right? Again, I agreed with a lot of what he said. He made a lot of good points, really. But I disagreed with a lot, right? And I'm just saying that I thought he actually brought a lot to the conversation. Better than just me spewing my deal. Enough. So, and just like I appreciate your input as well. And what I'm getting at, though, right now we are, regardless of everything that happened in the past, and maybe I am very exaggerated in how I think we should handle this, okay? But, we have done a lot for countries, particularly in Europe and around the world. We have done a lot. The world would not be the same. And people in other countries, it was funny because I was watching this interview, and I think it was an actual German or someone else over in Europe that was giving the United States a hard time. And then one guy asked him, he said, so what do you think the world would be like without the United States? And his direct answer was, the world would be less free. And that was the truest thing I've heard. And but for whatever reason, we still feel like we need to give everything to everyone else and not take care of our problems here in the United States. I don't agree with a lot of the problems that people think we have here in the United States. But if we were going to address those issues, okay, whether I agree with them or not, then we need to stop worrying about other people outside of this country.
Yes.
Okay? And it's a problem.
So what do you think of when I tell you, or when I propose the idea that Americans are the lab rats of the world?
In what way, though? What do you mean?
Okay, so
because we can control the world too. We're the most powerful country.
Well, see, the thing is, we can't even control how our food, the food that we consume, and our water and everything is being processed. We can't even control that. We can't control how our money is being spent.
Again,
we can't control how our environment is being altered in such a way that it's killing off insects and birds and people. We think we are free. We're led to believe that, but we are being fed food that makes us fat, yet we're still starving. And we are we are be giving freedoms that actually hurt us in the end. And so I don't think that we are actually free. I don't think we ever have been, because we've been controlled by the media, which has been controlled by our enemies, and they have been in control since the beginning.
I agree with what you're saying. I don't know. I keep trying to Kenny, hold on, Kenny. He was trying to call back in.
Like, look at the world today. Like we don't have the freedom to just go about our day how we've been living all this time in America. We are being forced to reduce our oxygen intake, and some of us are being fired from our jobs. Who's forcing you to reduce your oxygen intake?
What do you mean?
We're being forced to wear masks all day.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
We can't even breathe air. It's like,
but
and yeah,
I get what you're getting, and I know you're passionate about this, Saba. I know we had this conversation. I know you're passionate about this whole thing. So a lot of the stuff you're go ahead, Kenny.
Sorry, go ahead.
A lot of the stuff that you're talking about, though, with these problems are brought on by ourselves, and not controlling our food supply. There's no reason for the United States should not control their own food supply. We have the most fertile land and the most productive farming industry, but we crush it. We do it to ourselves.
Have you ever seen the documentary? It's farm.
Are you guys
like
Canadian?
Apocalypse?
No, we're American.
You're American?
Yeah.
So why? Never mind.
What? No, go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I mean, like it seems like you guys should be advocating for Canadian values.
What Canadian values should I be advocating for?
Freedom.
We're free too. And actually, if you look at the COVID difference right now with the restrictions, I would say we're a lot freer.
And access to clean water. And access to clean food.
Clean food?
Access to true history?
I'm pulling shit out of my ass. Fuck you.
No, the healthy food. I was just trying to see what you meant by clean food. Healthy food? Is that what you're saying?
No. I was pulling shit out of my ass. You're not.
I get what you're saying. Okay. So look, hey, we haven't talked before, so I don't understand your sense of humor. Okay.
Yeah. No. But you did just get it a second ago.
I'm catching on though.
Yeah.
But Saba, the United States, we have brought a lot of this onto ourselves. Okay, a lot of this globalist stuff, that we have going on, like with the Bushes and the Obamas and all that stuff, we have killed ourselves. We have made ourselves rely on other countries on things that we don't need to rely on them for.
Who's we?
I'm talking about us as a country, the United States.
Well, I never did that. I never agreed to that.
You vote.
I didn't know. No, I don't.
Okay, but everyone else does. Just because you don't vote doesn't mean that.
No, but see, the thing is, we don't know who to vote for. Nobody knows exactly. Very few people knows what's really going on.
Exactly, and that's part of the reason I have this podcast. Go off of, but you're right.
Yeah,
we're uninformed.
Yeah.
But that's not that's your own
and that's
fault.
Not our fault.
I'm not when I say your own, I don't mean yours. I'm talking about as a country, like as a person, an individual, right? That's someone's own fault if they're uninformed, especially with access to information.
See, the thing is, we didn't know. Listen, we didn't know. We don't think like our enemies think. Okay, we're not evil like that. So we didn't see this coming. We didn't know that they're gonna lie to us a bunch. We didn't know that they had a thing to do this whole COVID-19 thing. We didn't know that. We didn't see it coming because we don't think like that. We're not evil. Okay,
so Saba, let me ask you. If a snake is venomous and will bite you, would you still stick your freaking hand in front of its head?
Of course not.
Exactly. So what do you mean we don't know that our enemies would lie to us? We know they're bad. We know that they don't have our best interests at heart.
No. Our enemies are in office right now.
That's a really bad argument.
You're saying, okay, so you're saying that our enemies are in office like Congress. Yes, trust me, you know on the show I go all in on that. As far as who to vote for, okay, and who is put in the Congress is done by the American people.
They lie to us, though. They lie. Lie.
I agree, and we need to hold them accountable.
So it's not our fault. Like, I mean, we expect them to not lie, and they lied. And so, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Quit our jobs and start learning politics?
You know what a lot of the problem is we have people that vote against candidates and not for candidates. Okay,
that is a problem. I agree. I think it's a problem if you take one side over the other in general. But that's only because I know.
Hold on, guys. Let me stop. I want to address Todd Jacobs on Facebook. So Todd, I do allow people to call in on Podbean.
Todd Jacobs on Facebook. Thank you for commenting.
Well, I do allow people to call in, Todd. A lot of times, especially the first part of the show. Stop.
Todd Jacobs on Facebook.
And so I'll talk obviously on my own, especially for the first half of the show. Then if someone always wants to call in, I do like getting different perspectives, Todd. So, you know, obviously you don't see this. I know you watch quite often.
Watch the countdown clock.
Yeah. You don't see this, you know, people calling in very often, but I do allow it. And on Podbean, that's kind of where it's people that are willing and able to call in. Just like if you wanted to, you know, you could always come over to Podbean and call in as well. And talk and discuss. Anyone is able to. So I just wanted to explain that and, you know, why it may seem like that. You know, and especially on these topics, I do like getting a different perspective.
Michael, can I talk to you, like, honestly for a second?
Yes, what's up?
Yeah. It feels like you're pushing one specific agenda. I don't know if that's the case, but it feels like that's fine. What you're doing.
What do you think my agenda is?
I don't know. But from what I've been hearing other people calling in and speaking, you turn down so much all the time.
What have I turned down? I haven't turned down anyone.
You've been turning down every other opposing any kind of speech against yours.
Well, hold on. I have my opinion. You have your opinion, right? We sit here and debate, right? That's how it is. That's how anyone is. I have a reason and a basis for the way I talk and the way I feel about certain things, and I feel very strongly.
Yeah, I'm with you so far.
Right. Yep. So
100% with you.
So I do have an agenda, I guess, if you want to say it as such. But what's wrong with that?
No. That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, what do you mean?
So yeah. What do I mean? Yeah. So we all have an idea of what we mean. But you're ignoring the fact that you're on here to talk about a certain kind of idea.
Well, here's the thing.
Right?
I express my opinion.
No. Hold on. You've been very nice.
Yeah.
You've been very nice. And I'm very sorry to like corner you like this.
No, you're good.
But like you have a very clear idea of why you're here tonight.
Yeah, well, I have topics I want to discuss, and I just want to warn you.
Quit interrupting Michael Kenny.
It's a specific idea. That's fine.
We're getting close to the countdown clock on Podbeam. I'm gonna restart this, so if it cuts out, right, we'll join back in. Facebook, there won't be any cutoff, so you guys don't have to worry about it. If you want to keep watching, you're more than welcome to keep watching. But I want to continue the conversation. But what I'm saying is there a problem with me getting on here and saying how I feel and that's the great thing about being an American in our First Amendment right is I'm allowed to do that and express my thoughts and my opinion. Now, when I do come on here and express a lot of my thoughts and my opinion, I do so try to base it on facts and numbers, especially when I talk about the economy. I also know that it's not going to appeal to everyone. Now, what I do try to do is give certain information out as far as how the economy works, how our elections work here in the United States, how the government works and their role. That is factual, and it's not debatable either. Like why we have an electoral college and the reason that's better, and why we and certain things like that. So I'm not all just opinion on this.
Can I interject?
Yes.
I would like to talk to you again sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
Because like I really like talking to you, even though we disagree strongly.
Yes. No. It's like I said. I think you got kicked out before. I don't censor anyone on the show, and I allow everyone to come in here and speak the way they.
No. You never kick me out. I just want to talk to you again because like we had some good discussion.
That guy, I can debate cream cheese belonging to bagels. That's funny. That reminds me of those. You see those pictures people post, and it's like a picture of a rock, and then someone goes, "This is a." This is a, I don't know, something, and it'll be like argue, and it'll start a debate on whether or not it's a real rock or not, right? Like people will argue about anything. So that's just what your comment, that guy just reminded me of. Kenny, you're more than willing to, or you're more than welcome to call in whenever. Anyone on Facebook, if you want to come on to Podbean, okay, and call in too, please feel free. I am open to anyone calling in. Sava, go ahead. We have about a minute and 30 seconds, but I'm going to restart it. But I know you wanted to say something as well.
Sava, you're muted.
Hang on, I got a customer.
Oh, well,
we'll see you in the next live cast.
So I'm going to go ahead and restart it, guys. All right, so I'm going to close this one out and restart it. Yeah. It's still going on Facebook, but and we will continue this.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Have a good night.
You too. And for those of you listening on Facebook, again, I do this on 2 different platforms. So that's kind of why it seems like there's 2 different conversations going on. Again, the whole message is the same. The podcast is the same. The information is the same. I'm just reading comments from both sides. So, and then obviously for the people that will read on YouTube. Now, I want to take a sec to go ahead and say, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Real Conservative Talk. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook as well. And share the show. It really helps. We'll wait for about 5 minutes here. Not 5 minutes. We'll wait for about 2 or 3 before I get started again. Let everyone join back in on Podbean, because Podbean only gives us 2 hours. I can have unlimited shows, but they only give me 2 hours. Facebook, fortunately, lets me kind of stream as long as I want to. But Eric, what's going on? Let me get your input. While we're waiting on everyone.
Well, welcome back, that guy. I think it's like a great conversation, but I will admit that one of my biggest pet peeves is I don't like when people talk over one another and really interrupt. And I rarely don't like yelling and scolding at people like that.
Yeah, I didn't like. I don't mind the yelling, and I don't mind the debate.
Because if people are going to talk, we want to talk one at a time and not overlap each other.
Yeah. And a lot of that's my fault too. I have a bad problem with that. I need to get better at that too.
Yeah.
So that's not that it goes both ways.
But I am in agreement that the name calling we can do without.
Mm-hmm.
But talking over one another, I mean, I don't have patience for that.
Yeah. I didn't like, again, I like the debate, and you can cuss as much as you want. You can say whatever you want. You can give your opinion. You can talk crap about anyone outside of here.
Welcome back, Johnny Dale.
But when you're debating with someone, to then start name calling, if you want to say they're crazy or whatever, then unless it's like something just outrageous, obviously we can go about it without the insults. That guy says, I think outside the box. When I play Grand Theft Auto, I obey street lights and avoid speeding. I've done that too, so I am not. I'm not. I'm guilty of that too. Then he also says, a drunk Canadian was trying to tell us to be like them. He did do that, and I was confused at that because he said that Americans should have Canadian values with freedom, but he also ended up saying that he was kidding and that he was, you know, he ended up. I started catching on to his sarcasm at the end there,
Well,
and I knew he was being sarcastic with some of it. But I actually thought, and especially in the beginning when we were talking about the foreign interference and stuff like that, that I don't know if his argument was good. At least, look, I have the way I think, okay, and people disagree with that. That's fine. But I thought he did bring, at least a good conversation up. So John Gale says he sounded drunk to me. He he did. But whether or not I'm not gonna sit here. I'm also infected with COVID, so we all have our stuff. But that I feel the way I do about the foreign interference thing, and obviously none of the stuff I talk about is going to change, right? Like, I'm not sitting here expecting any kind of change. I'm just stating an opinion on what I think. What I think. Like, that's it. Obviously, I am well aware that a lot of my opinions are not going to sit right with people. And that's fine. I was completely okay with that. And I knew that if I was going to have this show and talk about the stuff the way I do, that I was going to run into that. So, and John Gale, I appreciate that. That guy says, I'm not sober. You don't need to be sober. This isn't a driving contest. So, being sober is not a requirement on this show. In fact, if you guys want to drink, I haven't drank on this show yet. Maybe I'll have a beer or something sometime. But what I do hope, though, and what Todd Jacobs said on Facebook did concern me a little bit. He said that it sounded like my podcast had been hijacked by people. I may need to be a little more careful moving forwards on how much of the conversation I let be in control of other people. I really like, especially on live, with Podbean, right? It's two different audiences, right? The people on Facebook are listening for me, but I try to give them the best show as possible. And I think that when I have other people call in, it just brings more value. But I don't want them to feel like they are, coming to listen to me and they're not getting me as well. So I need to just be aware of that, because obviously I don't. The last thing I want to do is lose viewers, not because of something I say, but because of how the show is operated. But again, I'm still sticking to the guns. I'm not here to censor anybody, ever. So, that guy says I let him hang himself. That was smart. Well, look, I'm not right about everything. I'd be stupid to say I was right about everything I say. I just trying to think about how I want to explain this. He says I'm wrong on a semi-regular basis. Yeah, everyone is wrong, right? Especially when it comes to opinions that they have. It's not always correct. I just would like to think that I form my opinion on a rational basis with the information I have read, and all the information that is known, at least to me, that's what I'm going off of. And the great thing about people, and the great thing about the United States as well, is we have a freedom of thought. We have a freedom of expression. That's why we are the most innovative country in the world, the most high-tech and society-advancing inventions have been created here. And there's a reason for that. And, it's great that we get people that analyze things so differently. People talk differently, they think differently, and that's great. So, having these debates and these discussions is a good thing. But we'll go. I'm trying to think. I had something else on what I wanted to talk about in our topic. So before I get into that, we'll wait a little longer to see if anyone else kind of jumps in. We had about 10 or 11 listeners in the room when I cut the other podcast out, and I see a few people going in and out. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to end it on the Facebook side now, in the YouTube side. So I just want to end and say that, go subscribe, go share the show, and actually I can keep it going if I don't know if John or anyone else that was watching on Facebook, if you guys want to go share the show, then I'll keep it going on Facebook. That's fine. Maybe get some more people in the room and get some more comments going. But I do appreciate when you do share the show on Facebook, because the majority of my audience is on Facebook, and that's where I'm growing the fastest at as well. So, I do, I do put a lot of time and effort into that side of it. And like the YouTube channel is very small comparable to Facebook, but I would like to grow there as well, because I know at some point in the future I'm going to be taken down off of one of them. So if you guys want to go over to Facebook real quick, share the show. If not, that's fine too, but that does help. And what's up, Poot? He said, don't let them rent space in your head. Oh, it doesn't. Look, I have too much thought in my head of my own issues and my own thoughts that what other people think doesn't even stand a chance, honestly. Does not stand a chance. But that guy, now, I forget some of the comments, but you were making some good comments in the last episode, and I think you were actually in disagreement on some of the things that I was talking about, but, I try and feed off of stuff that's coming in, and unfortunately, I wish there was a way to, have these comments interjected with the ones on Facebook as well. So, and I'm going to try and start streaming on Clapper too at the same time, but I wish they could all see the comments so you guys could all interact. Obviously that's probably going to be impossible, but it would be nice. And let me think. I'm trying to think, what the hell was the last topic?
I'm back.
What's up, Eric? What the hell was the last topic on?
And I think another thing about, like, when it comes to, like, podcasting etiquette, besides me not liking people like rudely interrupting and talking over each other, but I think maybe a good piece of advice the old man from the Old Man's podcast would give you is, before you start taking calls, maybe at least try to get to know them in the Podbean chat.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly.
And not be blindly taking calls from people you don't know.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I think you're right. I need to be better at that, right? Obviously, I know Sava, I know you, and a lot of the people that call in most of the time, I do know.
And other shows that you're associated with as a listener and as a featured panelist.
Yes, exactly. So, but, like I said, I thought that guy brought up a lot of good points in his own way. And, we disagreed, but it sounds like he agreed on a few things. The whole thing on Germany, I can't get out of my head why it wouldn't have been Germany's fault. It was directly their fault. So that's where I started trying to let him talk and explain, and I don't think he did a good job explaining it. But apparently to him, I didn't do a good job explaining my point either. So, and I'm trying to freaking remember. I don't want to get out and go see what the description was on the last podcast because it didn't carry over. But that guy says, I love me some Dan Bongino. Yes, Dan Bongino is great. He really is. In fact, he's got kicked off of YouTube lately for good, which is crazy. I don't even think he got many warnings. So he won't be on there anymore. That's probably going to end up happening with me. I've already had issues on Facebook and being censored. And I think as a conservative nowadays, that's something that we're going to have to deal with. And it's sad.
And that And that hashtag I put in chat, if you look for that hashtag woke cancel culture on Twitter, you'll see 2 tweets. And Joe Rogan are tied to those.
Yep. I'm trying to, let me see something here. I hope I didn't just mess up this. I'm trying to see what the damn. Oh, well, I guess we actually addressed it. It was just the military spending and.
Yes.
Yeah, so that. Look, again, my view on that is pretty dramatic, but I still think that, we are way too. We're way too nice. Us as American citizens or as a country to other countries, we're way too nice. And, we want to be, right now we have a president especially that wants to be liked by everybody. But, like who is, it's better to be liked than feared. No, it is not. In a dog-eat-dog world that we live in, it is what it is, right? Like we can't just make the world peaceful overnight. Okay? If we could, we would have. Maybe. Well, I don't know about that. Like, we're not even going to get into that. But it isn't. Okay? It is a dog-eat-dog world. And we need to be feared. If we're not feared, why do we have nuclear weapons? Nuclear weapons are there as a deterrent. Why haven't we used them on anyone other than Japan? It's a deterrent. And we even use them on Japan as a deterrent. Because if we kept the war going and we invaded the mainland, millions of people would have died. Japanese and Americans. Because the Japanese were relentless and they fought to the death. And the United States, we had a lot of fight left in us. Like, it was not going to end well for them. We had already killed millions of Japanese firebombing them. We killed more Japanese people with the napalm than we did with the nuclear weapons. And the nukes were a deterrent to something far worse. And, why did Russia have nukes? Why do we have nukes? Why do other countries have nukes? Because it's a deterrent to keep people from coming over and invading us. And doing something that we don't like, and because you're not just risking that country, you're risking the world. And exactly, John Gale, peace through strength. That's exactly what it is.
And Ronald Reagan was the epitome of that too,
because he understood that, and it works. Look what happened: the Soviet Union was crushed.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
That guy just said, I just got done listening to a podcast where the topic was nukes didn't defeat Japan. Well, the United States defeated Japan, but the nukes helped. Russia entering the war got Japan to surrender? What?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Japan had...
Welcome back, Saba.
Japan kicked Russia's ass right before World War II. And a couple times before World War I. Like, Sava's come back. But I don't think Russia ever even beat Japan in a war. Japan whooped that ass up and down the last, beginning of the century. And that's actually what led to the Tsar having a lot of the problems that he had.
Like when I was in like the It's Doomsday podcast last night, I know Jester and Raccoon, we're talking about, like the Ukraine crisis, and they even brought up like the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, as well as the 2011 Fukushima disaster, and I even included like the 3 Mile Island incident from 1979 where we came dangerously close, and because I think nuclear fallout like that, I mean, could be about as catastrophic, if not worse than like the nuclear bombs like we had to drop on Japan.
Yeah, well, and I'm just replying to this comment.
But I would imagine that would be some great discussion piece for tonight if y'all just go that far.
Yeah, sorry, I was replying to a comment. That guy's comment. Russia didn't have nuclear weapons until after World War II. They didn't have that technology. We were the only ones during World War II. Japan was closed, or not Japan. Germany was closed, but we actually used those scientists to come and feed our own to feed our own nuclear program. He said it's all mitigating factors for surrender. Japan surrendered. What was the exact day of Japan's surrender? They dropped the bombs on August 6th and August 9th. When was VJE or VJD? Can anyone pull up the exact date of that? Let's see. VJD was August 14th. So they surrendered literally 5 days later after the last bomb was dropped. He said they had conventional warheads that had high degree of accuracy for the time. What do you mean by they didn't? Or you're saying like not nukes, but like missiles or rockets? You know, I don't. But why? Okay, why would Russia enter a war with Japan when Russia was getting crushed by the Germans? Russia lost 70 million. Was it? No, it's like some crazy number of people. Like what, 30 or 40 million people died in that war against Germany in World War II. That for the Russians.
Wait, are you sure it was the Germans?
The Germans were allied with Japan in a sense, so they weren't going to go against Japan. He said the Russians were entering the war against Japan, but I don't think the Russians had the capability at that point because they were so they were getting crushed by Germany, and then the winter turned that around. But like I don't think they had the capability to do so because they had lost so many people. And they were so set on destroying Germany, and they still needed our help to do that. Like, why would they have entered another war?
What was that war called?
World War II.
Okay, so basically, they did to Germany what they did to us against Germany. So they used Germany against Russia, and they used us against Germany. And we unwittingly did what we did,
so,
and it's just like
I'm just clarifying. I'm
piggybacking.
Sorry. You said they used Germany against Russia, and then they used us against Germany. Who's they?
Yes, so the Rothschilds. So they funded these wars.
Oh, I didn't see your
comment.
They
funded both sides. They funded both sides.
Well, here's the thing: the Rockefellers were friends with Hitler. They all hung out together. It wasn't until like the Holocaust became like public knowledge that they backed off of that, you know, and because they didn't want to be seen. But they all went over there and hung out with the guy. Like this is public.
They loaned him money for the war.
Yeah,
they funded it.
We're not. Yeah, I'm not sitting here saying that there's no backdoor dirty stuff going on. That's never been an argument of mine. I know that went on. You know, as far as the causations, I'm not looking at particular funding. Okay, I'm just looking at the outcomes and the reasons.
So the outcomes is the reason why, like, so when, like, for example, when we went over there and fucked up Germany, it was justified because of what they did to Russia. And then when we put Japanese people into
that's not what we didn't go over there because of what they did to Russia, though. We didn't give a shit what they did to Russia. We were never really allies with Russia.
We were told that they were fucking up the Jews.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
that's still not even why we entered the war. That's not why we went to war with Germany either. The Holocaust wasn't the driver in that. We entered the war after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, you know, and so we at that point escalated we were helping out indirectly with the war effort in Japan, or not Japan, Germany, or not Germany, Europe, sorry, with, you know, supplying some pilots and then planes and stuff like that. But we never were directly involved. It wasn't until Japan bombed Pearl Harbor that then we decided to actually go get involved because our allies over there, like Britain and France, was occupied, right? That's when we decided to enter that war, and Hitler declared war on us. But the Holocaust didn't have it, we knew about it, but they didn't know until they actually found the camps, and that was almost at the end of the war, right at the end before we went into Berlin.
Okay. Have you ever seen Europa?
No.
It's a documentary. So I think that in order for us to understand in order for you to understand what I'm talking about, I think you have to watch that. I will send you a link to watch it.
Okay.
I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do. So yeah, like I hope that you do so that we can talk about it after you watch it. But yeah, there's a lot of lies involved with this, and and so it's just there's a lot of deception. There's a lot of twisted history, and so I think it's going to be very difficult for me to discuss this with you. I don't have the wherewithal to articulate everything that I've learned to you in a proper way. So I don't even want to like attempt to do that. But
Yeah,
I'll stick around.
yeah. And you said it's Europa. Yeah, send me the link. Again, I'm open to
Yeah.
look at whatever. So uh, let me do this, and I know because we just started this. I want to get back on. I need to take my. I'm gonna end it on Facebook, okay? And then on Podbeam, can we get back on in about 20 minutes, if that's okay with people? Or is there another show going on tonight?
There's nothing else going on that's really big, but I did let you know in chat that tomorrow evening it's the Chuck and Billy's Not Your Cup of Tea, and then Wednesday evening it's going to be Shannon, and but there's still no word yet on whether the Beans and Weenie show with Scooter and Spanky is coming back yet.